Right, so for our interview tonight, we have the 2018 winner of the West Highland Way, David McLure. So thank you so much for joining us, David. You finished the race in 16 hours, 24 minutes and 14 seconds, which actually puts you 15th overall in the standing. It was funny, I was chatting to Richie Cunningham, and his best time when he won it one time was 16:24.00. So he said, I'm still just one place ahead. But anyway, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And we wanted this evening just to chat to you about the race, and we got some great questions on Facebook. But maybe just first of all, what are your feelings? It's Monday evening, so you only finished the race 2 days ago. So what are your overall feelings as you reflect on the day?
Well, I think the overall feeling is relief that it's over. I don't need to run 95 miles again. I'm obviously delighted to win the race, but I think, like a lot of people, when you've built up for a race for so long, that's been my goal race for. I had a 32-week training plan, which is quite a lot, but at the back of my head for, I would say, the last sort of 2.5-3 years since I got properly back into training after my ankle operations, it was all about trying to compete in the West Highland Way race. So once it's over, it's that feeling of almost like, so what do I do now? It's a strange sort of post-race depression sort of feeling, but I'm delighted, and probably it still feels a little bit surreal. It feels like kind of walking around in a daze almost a little bit. Yeah. But it's great to join them. I mean, you look at the shield and the names that are on that list. It's a fantastic list to be on. So
well done. So I interviewed you on January the 9th for episode 123, and I encourage people to watch that or listen to that, because it was basically we were catching up, because I'd followed you when you did your first West Highland Way. You were one of the people I followed, and that year in 2013 you did it in 19 hours 55:48, and we talked quite a bit in that podcast about your injury and having to recover from that, and you were out for a good 18 months, weren't you? So just tell us a little bit about how your training went from when we were chatting in January through to the race. You said you had this 32-week plan. So did it go to plan?
Pretty much. I've been very fortunate. I haven't had any sort of injuries. I haven't missed any sort of days training at all, really. I had the British 100k, I think that was the end of March, which always representing Scotland. It's a kind of huge achievement, and I think because I did it last year, for some reason this year I couldn't quite get myself up for the race as much as at the back of my head I was so focused on the West Highland Way race, so that almost felt like a long training run. I chased Robert Turner around in circles for 7 hours down in Wales, and the race didn't go as well. I just wasn't mentally right for the race. Physically I felt fine, and I think it worked out well as like a really good long training run for the West Highland Way race, and I came through it with no injuries, and the only thing that I wish I'd maybe done is thrown in another race, because it's a long time to go. I did a couple of 10Ks, but they were always just part of a session. So I think when you're doing races as long as the West Highland Way, it's quite difficult to do many races. You're looking at sort of 2-3 a year, which isn't a lot, and then you start to panic. All it takes is you catch a bad flu or something the week before and all that training's lost. So I was a little bit wary that might happen, but no, the training went fine, and I was standing on the start line with no excuses. I felt as if that I wouldn't have changed anything looking back. Okay, so just think about your plans then. Did you have a very definite plan for the West Highland Way race? Was it affected by who else was running, or what was your thoughts as you went into the race? My thoughts going into the race were I wanted to run the race in 15 hours and 30 minutes. Okay. And if I did that and someone was faster than that, I'd have been the first person to shake their hand. And looking at the field, I didn't think that would have happened. I thought if I run that pace, that would be good enough to win. And I think I was sort of, we'll go on to the splits later on, but that was the goal. But the main goal was to win the race, and the sort of B goal, if you like, was to run a good time. And I was delighted that I managed to win the race.
Yeah. And then just think about the Friday. I think one of the tough things about this race is that it starts at 1 a.m, as we know, on the Saturday morning. So the Friday, it can be hard, can't it? So,
long day.
Yeah.
Long day.
So how did you manage to look after yourself on that Friday? Were you working? Did you have a day off? Or?
I worked in the morning. Mum and Dad have got a plumbing and heating business, and they would have given me the day off if I wanted it, but I just felt as if that I would just be hanging around all day. So I thought I would just have a normal sleep on the Thursday night, go to work in the morning, and then Friday the plan was to try and get a few hours sleep in the afternoon, but that wasn't going to happen. No. So thankfully the World Cup was on, so managed to watch that, but Friday afternoon's a long afternoon, I think, for everybody that's running the race.
Now, what about the registration? When did you go? And
I think I would probably be one of the last people to register. I registered sort of maybe 11:45.
Right.
Just because the thought of driving over from Newton Mearns at 9 and then going back and then waiting, and then also the two boys that were supporting me in the first half of the race, they were going to pick me up, so it just made sense to register as late as possible. So
you registered, got weighed, got yourself sorted, had half an hour or so, and the race was ready.
It's that period just almost as a blur. It's just like, you think I had planned to do some sort of warm up, but before I knew it, we were getting called to the start, and you're ready to go.
Yeah. Now, I thought just to chat through the race, if we split it into 4 sections and just get a little bit of a feel, and we've got some great questions which will cover a number of things about your nutrition and various things. So I thought if we just sort of go through it, how you felt at each of the sections. So from Mulgai to Rowadennan, I've got the splits here. You ran to Balmaha in 2 hours 40:01, and that was obviously your first place there. And then to Rowadennan, your split was 1:09:35, and again that was the fastest split. So you got to Rowadennan in 3:49:36, and you had about 11-minute lead there from the second guy. And so again, just tell us that little bit. I wasn't actually at the start. I came to the registration and then went home because we had to get up early to get up to Ogden Tyre. But I did see a video of the start, and I saw one person go zooming along, and I thought you were in white. So I thought, oh, David's been sensible. He's sort of, and one of the questions was about going for Usain Bolt's 100-metre record. So was that you at the start?
That was me, yeah. But it's strange because until I watched that back, I would never have believed that that's what the race started like. I just assumed everybody was behind me. But it's obviously the adrenaline and the excitement, and I was a wee bit wary not to start too slow and be bunched up and then fall into someone else's pace.
Okay.
So I did want to get out, not that quick, but I did want to get out and sort of run my own pace as early on as I could. Right. But I wasn't expecting to be running I think my first mile was 6:29, and when I looked down
and no one was with you.
I was glad that when the big hill comes after, I think it was about a mile, and thankfully that slowed me down, and I kind of calmed down a bit. But
so how was that first section then through to Beech Tree and along there, and that early section?
I felt I managed to get the pace back to roughly where it should have been. I think I was a little bit too quick into Drimmen, and then between Drimmen and Balmaha, I managed to take a wrong turn just before we get to the fence. As you approach Clonnickhill, there's a sort of a crossroads, and
is that where there's the barrier across the road?
So you go through the barrier, and then about 100 yards.
You should bear right, shouldn't you?
And I didn't bear right. I went left.
So that takes you down to that little village, doesn't it?
Yeah,
eventually.
Which I knew this isn't right.
Yeah.
And then panic starts to set in.
And how far did you go down?
Not as far down as the village, but I would say roughly probably about quarter of a mile.
And then that's quarter of a mile back, so it's half a mile extra.
So I get back to the crossroads, and then I see the West Highland Way marker sign, panic over, back on track, but it still doesn't feel right. And then I see all the headlights coming towards me, and I realise what I've done is I'm actually going back to Mulgai.
So when you came back up, you went right and left?
Yep. So then when I seen the head torches, I thought, this isn't right either. So I turned back, and so I lost a bit of time, and that did sort of throw me out. And so
you didn't get caught?
No, I didn't get caught, no.
Okay.
So although I was bang on my split to Balmaha, I shouldn't have been. So
you must have lost at least 10 minutes?
I would say between 5 and 10. Okay. I would say. So That wasn't ideal.
And the problem as well, the temptation is to run faster to catch up the time that you've lost, isn't it? Which is not sensible either.
No, and in hindsight, when you look back and you think that in a race of that length, things like that are going to happen, and over that length of race, it doesn't affect it too much. No. But at the time, it feels like, I remember thinking, that's my race finished.
I've done it. It's more mentally, isn't it? Yeah.
But I knew when I got back to the crossroads, and I knew I was still in the lead, so that was a positive. And then the section from Balmaha to Riverdennon.
Did you see your crew at Balmaha?
I did, and the one of the things we did wrong at the checkpoints, and it was my fault, was it was far too quick. I'd said to them, I don't want to hang about in the checkpoints, so everything was a bit rushed, and I made mistakes. I didn't take things that I wanted to take, but
whereas maybe if you'd taken just an extra 10 seconds or half a minute, you could have.
I would have just settled down. I would have had what I had planned to have. But the section from Balmaha to Riverdennon, it was fine. I had no issues into there, and I think when I got to Riverdennon, I was pretty much back on pace. So that was fine. But it's interesting when you're leading the race, you don't know. You only know what the last split was, so you know how the race was going 8 miles ago, but you don't know. Whereas if you were second, you know exactly at the point. So things like that, I wasn't really mentally prepared for that. I had no real idea of how well the person chasing would have ran that section. Even though you think you've ran quite a solid section, you think, well, maybe he's actually ran it quicker. So I think the gap was, what was the gap there?
Well, to Riverdennon, you were 11 minutes.
Whereas if someone had told me it was 2 minutes, I would have thought, because especially at that section, you can't look back and see, because it's so through the forest, it's still dark as well.
You wouldn't see them, would you?
No, you wouldn't.
So what point did you switch your head torch off then?
Just before Riverdennon. I decided to. But I made the mistake. I got a new head torch, and I'd set it on to the full beam, and it started to dim quite badly. And that happened before the crossroad incident. And I think if I didn't do that, if it was brighter, I might not have made that mistake. So small things like that you learn from.
And then again at Riverdennon, did you see your team there?
I did. I decided I'd started to feel a kind of hot spot in my foot, which normally I don't have any issues with blisters, and it was really dry, so I was really surprised to have an issue with a blister, and I thought I'd better deal with this just now. So at Riverdennon, I changed my changed my socks, and apart from that, the midges were terrible, as everybody would have realised, so you didn't want to hang around there too long, and I got out of there. But again, I was changing shoes. You'd be lucky if I was sort of 2 minutes in there. It was again far too quick, but learned.
Okay, and then the next section, let's look at from Riverdennon then to Benglass Farm. So obviously you've got the new little section down on the lock up to Inversnaid, and then Inversnaid to Benglass, which a lot of people find quite difficult. Be interested to your thoughts on that. But you did that in 2 hours 30:27, but that was actually the second fastest. The guy behind you did it in 2:27, so he caught up 3 minutes. So by the time you got to Benglass, your lead was down to 7 minutes. So again, how does that section feel for you?
Again, I felt as if I'd ran that section well. I took music at Riverdennon. I got my iPod out, just to sort of take my mind off that is a difficult section. But I felt as if I moved reasonably well. I did expect to lose a wee bit of time on that section, because I prefer it on that section just to take my time rather than taking any chances, because it's quite easy to slip and hurt yourself on that section, and then you end up losing, or you don't finish the race. So I wasn't too fussed that I had lost a little bit of time on that one, and up till Benglass it felt great. Didn't feel as if there's any sort of issues. And again, I think getting to Benglass Farm for my splits, I was pretty much bang on. I think it was actually a couple of minutes quicker than I'd planned to be at that point.
15:30.
But I think when you're sort of competing, it's quite hard when you start to get tired as well. At that time in the morning, I'd started to kind of not really pay attention to the splits and stuff like that. I was starting to just focus on sort of moving rather than how everything was going.
Yeah. And again, did your team get into Benglass okay? Because I think there were some issues put, I know I spoke to John and Noni afterwards, and it was really hard trying to get teams in and out. And
and we were probably quite lucky that we were one of the first ones in as well. But my wife Frances, who took over the second half of the support, she actually camped out at Benglass Farm, so that was quite a good idea.
That's the way to do it.
And so she met the two boys at Benglass, but I had given the boys a sheet with "this is what I need."
Right.
So bear in mind these boys are not ultra runners.
Okay.
So come into Benglass and I'm like, I'm going to change my shoes again, and I'm going to take some Coke. Where's the Coke? It's in the car.
In the car, which is down the lane.
There's the shoes in the car. But it was totally my fault, because I should have said to them, make sure everything's up there, because even though I've given you this list, that's subject to change. And the further on in the race, the more subject is to change. And because Frances has done the sort of 100k support, she kind of understood that, whereas the two boys just had tailwind, cereal bar, that's it. And they're looking at me going, no, you don't want that, you want this. So we learned a big lesson there.
It is interesting, David, because I think if you do have runners as support, it does make a big difference, doesn't it? Because runners tend to understand runners, don't they? And they can think, right, he said this, but I'm going to bring this along because he might change his mind.
I think you're better to be too well prepared and have too much stuff than ill prepared. And it was just unlucky as well. Pretty much every other section, the cars at the checkpoint, whereas that one they couldn't get in the car park very well, so the car was quite far away as well, so that's why that they hadn't managed to get all the stuff up. But again, you learn from things like that, and I didn't take on enough calories there, and I think that's where it started to go a wee bit south from there.
I do remember there was one year where a support team had all the stuff in the car, and they made the runner go all the way back to the car to get the stuff, and that's it's a good quarter of a mile, isn't it, and then back again. So I don't think that hopefully not many did that. So again, where we go to Octatire. So then the next bit was you were 1 hour 36 to Octatire. Now obviously myself and Katrina were there, so we saw you coming, and your team, when they arrived before you did, obviously they were very buoyant, and they said you were moving well and in first place, and had a decent lead on the second place. And then we saw you come in, and I was just so impressed, David, because you ran the whole of that, from where we could see you all the way up to the checkpoint, and you just looked so smooth. And you came into Octatire, got weighed, that was fine, and you were, from our perspective, you were looking good. Is that how you felt?
Nope. I started to feel that something wasn't quite right, and I think it was just the lack of calories, and also just getting tired. And then I started to question whether I'd maybe started too quick, because these splits that I'd came up with, when you haven't done you haven't raced, and although I've did the West Highland Way race before, this was the first time I felt as if I was properly racing to win. These splits that I'd came up with, I didn't know whether I could do it or not, and they were quite aggressive for where I was at the time. So I'd started to question things, and then for whatever reason, when I get out of Octatire, that's when I really started to struggle, and that's when I had my biggest sort of low points. And up till that point, I had ran all the hills, and I hadn't really thought at all about walking. But then I just felt from then on it was a long walk.
Okay. And again, I think your team were they were great, because they were timing how long the gap between, and I think you had 13 minutes there again, because you were the fastest split by a good 6 minutes actually from the second guy. So you increased your lead again up to 13 minutes, and he definitely, he looked in worse state than you did. He looked as though he'd worked harder than you had, and he had a longer stop as well. So I think it must have been maybe nearer 16, 17 minutes. I think when you left to when he left. So it was looking good. And then from Octatire to Bridgie of Orkney, you did that in 1 hour 36. And again, you were the second fastest there. Someone down the field actually was the fastest. In fact, it was Nicola Adams.
There you go.
Yeah, so she was picking things up. But you were, to your opposition, you were quicker. And then from Bridge of Orkney, let's talk about that first then. So you said you started to struggle a little bit.
When I got to By the Way, it felt like the classic "Here Comes the Wall." I just my legs just didn't want to run anymore, and I just couldn't get going. And I pretty much walked from By the Way till halfway to Bridge of Orchy. It was a long walk, so I would say it was a good sort of 20-25 minute walk. And Frances had pulled over into one of the lay-bys just out of Tyndrum to take some photos, and the route goes quite close to the lay-by, and she could see that I was walking, and she was like, "Is everything all right?" I said, "Nah." I said, "I think I'm done. I think that's me finished."
Oh wow!
And it's amazing how even leading the race, if somebody had said, "Right, that's fine, you can just stop now," I would have stopped. I was,
oh wow!
And I just had never expected to feel like that. And Frances, I think she even said that she might start singing, so I think that was enough to keep me going.
So what you said about your wife singing?
It's enough to get you running again. So I kept walking, and I thought, well, you can at least get to Bridge of Orchy, and if you still feel like this, then... And I just assumed people would start coming past me, because I didn't know that the lead was as big as it was at that point. And I started to get a sore neck from turning around and shaking all the time. But thankfully, sort of halfway between sort of Tyndrum and Bridge of Orchy, I managed to start shuffling away again, and I got down to Bridge of Orchy. And coming into Bridge of Orchy, I always felt, if I get to Glencoe, then I know I'm going to finish the race. I just need to get through this checkpoint somehow, and then I'll be fine. But the low got I felt at my lowest at that point, just coming out of Tyndrum, and I never seemed to get any. I thought a big high will come and you'll perk up and you'll get back to flying again, but it never really came. Just felt like a long struggle from there, and I just couldn't get really going again. I didn't run any hills after Tyndrum, and that wasn't the plan, but that was what I had on the day, and I just had to make the most of it.
It's interesting though, isn't it, David, that even though you felt like that, you were still the second fastest on that section. So when you think you felt you were struggling, but everyone behind you was probably exactly the same and worse. So.
I think it's amazing how much your mind plays tricks on you as well. That probably looking back, I probably ran a lot more of that section than I feel as if I did. But when you start walking and you just feel like you're just hemorrhaging time, and you just keep turning around thinking, well, somebody's. What you don't think is what's happening behind. The other guys have ran 50 odd miles as well, so they're not going to suddenly start doing 7-minute miles fly past.
And as I said, the guy who was second and third, they were definitely look worse for wear than you were coming in toe to tyre, so I think they were going to have to regroup as well. And that's probably what it was. But then from there, from Bridge of Orchy then to Glencoe, you were 2 hours 4. But so you were 5th fastest on that leg, which is interesting again. That the guy Dave Andrews, who was 4th overall, he was the fastest split. But the guy behind you was 4th fastest at just 7 seconds faster than you. So you two were probably going at the same pace. About you've still got 17-minute gap. I think I walked a lot more of that section than I'd intended to. For example, I walked from Victoria Bridge until it levels out on the Rannochmoor, and I'd planned to be running all that sort of route. And I think when I was running, I was probably running a little bit too quick. I think maybe if I'd run a little bit slower, I'd have been able to maintain it for longer. So things like that after the race you learn from, but at the time I just felt as if I need to settle for just walking the hills and try and run as much as the runnable bits as I can. And a Jelly Baby Hill from Murdo, you got your
Jelly Babies,
2?
Orange. It said since I was leading the race it had to be orange.
That's okay. Is that the colour of champions? Is it?
I just think they taste the best. I like the orange ones.
And they probably go well with Murdo's trousers.
But I got into Glencoe, and I always knew if I got to Glencoe I was going to get to the end. Even if I didn't win the race, I knew I was going to complete the race at that point, which was a good feeling. My mum and dad actually came out at Glencoe, so that was quite good over Rannochmoor too. No, I knew they were coming, but I didn't know when they were coming. It just depended what time they managed to get up.
And were they very proud of you? Were they?
They were. So we and the further on in the race, I started to take a wee bit longer on the checkpoints, and that definitely helped. It made a big difference.
Yeah. We've got a question about food coming up, so we'll deal with that later. But again, your support team, you said they were inexperienced in some ways, but obviously they looked after you well, did they? And I
think the two boys that did the first half, because they're certainly not ultra runners. It was good for them to do the first half, when, especially near the start, that you do just need a few things, but it was great to have, because Frances has done so many now, it was great to have her, and my dad's done a few as well, so they kind of know, if you know your runner, you can tell almost just by looking at them what they need, and whether they do need an extra couple of minutes, or whether you're better to get them out and not let them sort of hang around. So, because late on in the race, your concentration starts to go, and I think having a strong support team at that point makes a massive difference.
And is Frances, is she a tough love sort of person, or is she a
no, she's not. She is when it's required. I.e., when I said I think that'll do me, I'm just going to walk over to the car. No, you're just going to keep going. But no, she's great. She knows exactly sort of the signs, what to look for, and everything was set out, so that was perfect.
And I think she knows as well how hard you've trained for this, how much you've prepared for it. And I think particularly for you, David, coming back from your injury, where for 18 months you were looking at other people running and you couldn't run, so she's seen all that, isn't she, and knows what it means to you.
No, it definitely helps. So.
Okay, so got through Glencoe, and then your next section there to Kinloch-Leven, you did that in 1:59.19, so you were third fastest for that leg, and the guy behind you was 4 minutes slower, so again you've extended your lead, so you're now up to 22 minutes ahead by the time you get to Kinloch-Leven. So again, over the Devil's Staircase and down into Kinloch-Leven, were you feeling
that was the section that I looked forward to the most. I always feel like the going up the Devil's Staircase is almost a rest, because when you plan to run, because if you plan to run as much of the route as I had, I felt like that was almost going to be a break from running, so it was 20 minutes I had that I felt I was going to be walking, so and you see quite a few people there as well, which is quite nice.
What supports in the race?
Just people out climbing, and it's that time of the day that I think it was kind of mid-afternoon, so it's pretty busy.
And they were where the race was on.
A few people were, and there was quite a lot of runners out as well, so it was nice to see some familiar faces.
And that's always a boost, isn't it, just to get a bit of encouragement. And
I just find that section, it's broken up quite nicely for coming out of Glencoe. You go down to Ging's house, you go along to the bottom of the Devil, you go up the top, you go down, and that's it done. It sounds easy. But the weather sort of surprised me. I was expecting it to be pretty warm and having a vest on, but I actually had to put a jacket on to go up the. So again, that was something that Frances suggested that I hadn't planned to do at all, but I needed it, because when I was sort of walking up, it was pretty chilly, because I think the wind was quite cold. But that section, although again it wasn't as quick as I had planned, I was at that time of the race, I was delighted that I was able to run pretty much from the top, the staircase all the way down to the checkpoint, which I felt that at that section it went well.
Now again, someone was telling me that I haven't been on that section for a year or two maybe, and it's a bit different now. It's been smoothed out, the path, the last little bit into. It's
certainly more runnable than it used to be, and I certainly remember in 2013 being really careful and thinking, when you're really tired, it's quite easy here to take a tumble, but I didn't feel like that this time. I felt as if it was a lot more runnable. I think because the weather we've had as well, that's helped. I thought the route was extremely runnable. I thought it was very favourable in terms of.
And there was a slightly different route into the village, wasn't there? We took you a slightly different way this time. Past the ski centre.
I was a little bit wary that I remember Paul Giblin went wrong there, but the signage was excellent. It was really easy to follow. So I got into the checkpoint, no bother.
And did you have a bit longer in Kinloch-Leven?
No, actually, I was quite keen to get going as quick as I could in there, because I didn't want to sort of hang around and start to get cold, and I actually felt quite good again at that point, although I wasn't sort of running as strong as I wanted, but mentally I felt like I'm on to the last section, and I think that gives you a boost. You think if you can get to Kinloch-Leven, you sort of know as long as you don't sort of fall over, you're going to get to the end.
And were you aware that the second guy was now over 20 minutes. Well, you wouldn't know at the time, but did you know that your gap was getting bigger? Or
the difficult thing was you hear different reports. So someone will say it's 17 minutes, someone will say it's 20. Then all of a sudden, someone said it was 10, and I thought, well, what is it then? So I always went for the sort of the lowest number. I thought, right, it's 10 minutes.
Right.
But again, you can't really
there's
affect someone else's race.
And there's not much you can do if the guy behind you is suddenly got a second wind and is going to catch you. There's not much you can. You're going as fast as you can.
Exactly. You just got to make the most of what you've got and just keep going forward.
Yeah.
And the good thing about the last section is you can see quite a lot behind you.
Right.
So I was looking quite a lot.
Were you? Did you ever see him?
At one point I thought I did, and it was actually exactly what I needed because it got me going.
Okay.
But
it couldn't
have been him because the gap was long. It was bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah. But if you thought it was him, then
that was enough to get me going again.
Yeah. Okay, so from Kynaston to Lundabrad, you did it in 1:28.36. So again, that was the second fastest, and the guy behind did it in 1:32. So again, he was fifth fastest. So your gap's getting bigger now. What's that? 25 minutes now. So it's getting a bit bigger. Obviously, you wouldn't know that. But how did you find the Laddickmore?
I found it all right. In training runs, I find it a long slog, and it does seem to go on forever. But I just tried to. I think at Kinloch leaving, I got music again, and that just basically it was the distraction of the music and. That was enough to. I just think you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. I tend to not look to see how many more miles it is, and I didn't look at my watch at all after probably Riverdenning. I didn't look at my watch once.
You just go in as well as you could.
Pretty much. And it was nice to see
saw Jeff and the guys out there.
Jeff. I had a glass of Tizer with Jeff, and he took a picture. So I want to get going here, but he took a picture, and that was nice. And then down into Lundavra with no issues.
Yeah, good. And then the last section, it took you 1:18, which is actually your worst split. You were 14th fastest on that one. Now, was that because you knew it was over and you had enough lead?
Yeah, I think Ian and Sandra, I'd seen them quite a lot in the second half of the race, and I think Sandra had mentioned that the gap had increased and it was 20 odd minutes. So when I got to Lundavra, and I knew, sort of looking back just before that there was nobody for a good bit, that I thought, well, barring disaster, so I think mentally I almost kind of switched off, and I allowed myself to sort of slow down, and I was taking it really,
and maybe really saving the moment a bit. Do you think? Or?
No, but it was strange, because I thought I would start to get emotional, but it was just, I don't know if it was just tiredness. It was just kind of focused on, I just need to get to the end, and I was almost scared to think I've won the race. It was almost as if I think that or I say that, then something's going to happen. So I didn't want to
jinx it.
Yeah, pretty much. So I was really slow going down the long sort of downhill into Fort William, and my blisters had got quite bad as well. So I don't think I could have ran much quicker anyway.
So you were grateful it wasn't a sprint finish at the end then?
Most certainly. But it was great to get down, and I've read a lot of people say when you see the 30 sign, then you know you're nearly there. I don't know how I managed to miss the 30 sign, so I got to the roundabout before I was still waiting for these 30 signs, and all of a sudden I'm at the roundabout, and I'm like, it's nearly over, and it was a great feeling. And then it was just great to get to the end. And
what's the emotion feel like there when you come round the corner, and there must have been a decent crowd there, was there?
See, again, it's all a bit of a blur. If you said to me who was there at the end, you wouldn't remember. You could have said there was 3 people there or 100 people there. I wouldn't really know. It was, you're almost in a sort of a bubble. So it was nice to get a hug off my support team, and then I basically just couldn't wait to sit down like everybody.
Definitely.
But
in a sense, when you finish first, there's no other support crews there because you're ahead of them all. Whereas if you finish, further down the field, there's a bigger crowd because people are still hanging around. But it must have been a great sense of job well done. You set out to accomplish, and even though you were maybe a little bit slower than you'd hoped to be, but you dealt with the circumstances of the day, didn't you?
I think that's something that I don't know why I felt as if because I hadn't ran the time that I'd wanted to run, I think there was a sort of sense of a disappointment. But coming from a golfing background, one of my friends put it in perspective, and he asked me who won the Masters this year. I said Patrick Reed, and he said, what was his score? I said, I have no idea. He said, nobody cares about the scores or the time unless it's a course record. Then it's just all about like winning. And when he said that, I thought, well, and the other thing is, it is a race, so I don't know whether if there was someone closer to me, whether that would have kind of pushed me on to a faster time. Nobody will know. But certainly, I think I could run it quicker. But the end up, it was nice to have such a sort of kind of a big lead at the end.
And David, the majority of people who are watching this and listening to this will be thinking, wow, 16 hours 24 is just amazing. So yeah, it was well done. So just go for a few hours then. The prize giving. I think one of the lovely things about our race is the prize giving, and the fact that you're presented with your goblets and your trophy and the shield. I thought you might drop it at one point. It was quite balancing on that book. And and then we give every single finisher, and there was 198 this year, so it took a while. But one of the things that we've done over the last few years is have this tradition now that the winner presents the last person, and it was this year it was Nicole Brown. So how did that feel for you, as the winner, being able to be involved in something like that?
That was one of the things that sort of pushed me on in my training, was the thought that I would love to be able to do that, and I was really looking forward to that. And Francis and I went out to Braveheart car park in the Sunday morning because I wanted to see who it was. And we thought it was a guy who was second from the end, and we thought he was the last finisher. And then we had got chatting to someone, so we had actually missed who it actually was. Nicole, so it was we missed Nicole. But I got more emotional giving her goblet, and I mean, to be out there for that long, it's a fantastic achievement, and I felt so happy for her. That, and a special mention to sorry, I should have got his name, the 70-year-old that finished in under 24 hours. I got more emotional watching him get his goblet than I did receiving the first place. I thought, that's basically 36 years older than me. That's right. And he's still able to do it.
When you're 70, if you can run it in there under 24 hours.
It just shows you what's possible. I thought that was a fantastic achievement.
I was there when he finished, and he'd given it everything. It was just so impressive. For loads of people to get under 24 hours is a major achievement, but as a 70-year-old,
that was my main goal when the first time I did the race was sub 24. That was my sort of make sure I do it in that time, and to see someone at that age do it just shows you what's possible. I thought that was fantastic.
And I think the people like this year, Jodie and Andy, you got their 10th. That's very special nice. As well, isn't it? Seeing people who have been in the race year after year, and there's others who. Tony had his 15th finish this year, and it's just
it's fantastic.
There's a lot of people who just love the race and we're going to be there every year. It's great. Okay, well, again, congratulations, and some great questions here. So let's just kick on with these, and we'll just deal with them as they go through. So Robert Turner, who's is he your teammate, your friend?
He's
your rival.
He's a bit older than me, but he's one of my teammates in the Scottish team.
So he says, "Huge congratulations, teammate. Having spent time with you, I understand the level of dedication you have in your training, and this win is richly deserved. West Highland Way is a different beast to running 2-mile loops in the Welsh countryside. Where do you see your strengths in terms of race types? Do you think you might go more extreme, Glencoe Skyline, for example, or stick to the flatter and obviously much harder stuff?"
Definitely the much flatter stuff. The more extreme stuff, the more technical the terrain, the more I would struggle with my ankle, so I don't really have a choice in that. And I just haven't done that type of training. So we were just talking earlier about the UTMB, and that's one of the sort of premier races in the ultra calendar that lots of people would like to do, and similar to you, I would like to do the route and take it in and enjoy it, but to actually race it is not something that I'd be more likely to do. The sort of the flatter sort of ultras. I do prefer trail to the 100k in the road. It's mentally pretty tough, but it's very difficult when you get asked to run for Scotland to say no. It's very, very difficult to turn that down. So I'd like to do that again. I think it might be in Perth next year. So, but yeah, certainly I won't be doing the Glencoe Skyline anytime soon.
Nicole Brown, who we were just talking about, who was the last finisher, says, how do you maintain momentum and concentration on the lockside sections between Rowerden and Benglass, especially the 4 or 5 mile section just after Inversnaid?
I think the first time I did the race, I really struggled with that section, and I think I got disheartened that I was watching the pace in my watch going up and up and up and thinking how slow I was moving. But moving forward, you learn that everybody goes slow at that stage, and for me, as I touched on earlier, it's important to get through that section unscathed, and if that means you lose a couple of minutes here or there, then so be it. Again, I touched on it. I took the iPod out at Riverdene just to sort of switch off a wee bit from it, and I didn't mind that section at all. Like sometimes it feels as if it goes on forever, whereas that on Saturday that wasn't the case. But it is difficult, especially when you're tired, and to try and maintain concentration. But I think the key is just to take your time on it. That's what my advice would be. Okay.
And she also says, are there any dream races you'd love to do that you haven't done yet?
There's so many fantastic races out there, and I think Scotland's got over 30-40 ultras now. I would like to do as many as I can, but in terms of, I think the Western States is the one in America that's I love. So it's just a shame this year it was the same day as the West Island race, but I love following that race and all the runners and that, and I think I'd like to be a few more years prepared, a few more years down the line prepared to attack that and have a real go at that. But it's trying to get in that race, it's not easy. But that would be the one I would say. And just to experience as many different ones as I can.
And just congratulations to Paul Gilbert. We'll gather finished 9th.
Fantastic.
So it's an
3
amazing
top 10s in a row.
Excellent. So that's great. I assume he's probably going to keep on going until he loses his automatic places. So well done to Paul. Stuart MacDonald, who also ran the race, he ran for the first time and finished, I think he was in the top 10 or just outside or somewhere, but a great race. And he said, what did you consume during the race and how much? So your fueling strategy. The
first half, the whole race, fluid wise, I just go with tailwind, quite like that. I find it really easy on my stomach and no issues. And the first half of the race, I tried to take on things like energy bars, and I tried like Serene fruitcake, but I found it really, really dry. And then the second half of the race, I tried Muller rice for the first time. I thought that was really easy to get down.
So you hadn't tried it before?
Nope.
Okay.
I don't know why I didn't take it. I was scared of it exploding in a training run, I think. But no, I tried like a milkshake and stuff like that. So I thought if I was okay with that, it'd be all right. I tried. The plan was to take on soup at Benglass, but that didn't really go to plan. It wasn't warm enough, so hard to drink.
You've been a bit of a diva there, were you?
The second half, I couldn't really stomach any sort of solid, so I just more gels and flat Coke, and then I had a Red Bull. Normally I get quite a good pick up from the sort of caffeine, but I didn't really find that this year. I think I have more caffeine now in everyday life than I used to, so I don't think I get as much of a hit. So that's something I might change going forward in the lead up. I know some people do that. I might have less caffeine and then hopefully I'll get a bigger sort of hit from it. So
you would say overall you feel you got most things right?
Yes.
There was a section that you maybe didn't eat enough?
I think round about the middle section, I think that might have led to the sort of the struggles. I think I should have taken on, like I had planned to maybe eat a banana and I would have like one bite of it rather than having the whole thing. It's very difficult when you feel like you're certainly I'm not hungry. I know some people do get really hungry, but I don't find during races I'm hungry, and I'm trying to force things down. And as I said earlier, when everything was a bit rushed, I certainly wasn't taking on enough. So that's certainly an area that I would look at. And I think that's for everybody that's ongoing, is how to try and get your nutrition as good as you can. Even I don't think I had enough of the tailwind mixture in my water. I could have made it a little bit more stronger, to get a few more calories in that way. But again, we learn.
Yeah. And then the next question from Liam McGregor. He's got a statement first. He says, "Turns out the winner is married to my daughter's teacher."
Small world. There you go.
So that's Frances.
Yeah,
she's a teacher.
She is.
Yeah, but he wants to know, when you're out in front and using your watch for pacing, then how do you keep motivated when there are no runners around you? And he also says, "Congratulations."
It's a difficult one. I've never, every other ultra that I've had success in, I've sort of came from behind and I've overtaken people near the end. So that's the first time that I've actually led a race for as long as that. So
did you prefer it, or
no?
Would you rather chase?
No, I much prefer chasing, because you feel like you've got something to gain chasing, whereas when you're out in front, you feel like all you can do is lose the race. You feel like so. That's how I felt. But again, the way it turned out, the way I ran the race, that might have been starting off a bit too quick, might have taken a bit more of the guys behind me, so it actually might have worked out really well. But in terms of motivation, I just find the best thing is just focusing on the next checkpoint, and then later on in the races, just breaking it up into even smaller sections and just focusing on getting to there, and that tends to work really well for me. But it's not easy. And
I think what you were saying before, I think there were times you were running a bit scared, weren't you, in the sense of you thought the guy was behind you, and that spurred you to put a bit more effort in.
Rabbit in the headlights comes to mind.
Okay, Andrew Kerr, who's a friend of the race, who now lives in Australia or New Zealand, certainly somewhere there, but he's a keen golfer, and he says, comments on speed golf. I reckon you'd be useful at it. For those who don't know, you are a professional golfer, and so there is a sport, isn't there? There is speed golf. And so that'd be something you'd be good at, or you'd like?
You think the two things would just fit, but no.
Never tried it?
I think the golf would hold me up now. I haven't actually tried it. I should go and try it. But no, I think
I don't know how it works on a course, because you must have to have the course to yourself, mustn't you?
You would need to.
Unless you went at 4 a.m. when it was light, but at the moment
it would be good fun. But I don't have any plans to take up speed golf.
But you'd be good though, wouldn't you? You would. Come
well, on average,
Sandra Beatty, did you feel under pressure at any point? I do recall telling you the gap was closing at one point. Did that push you on or make you more stressed? And she says, please say the former.
No, any time that I heard that the gap had sort of narrowed, I felt as if that helped, because it got me going a wee bit, whereas when I felt, like you can see with the last section, when the gap had got to what should have been enough to get me to the finish, that's when the pace obviously did drop. So no, in terms of feeling under pressure, I felt under pressure right from we started at Mulgai, and that's probably where the fast start came from.
You saying both start?
Because it took me an hour and a half just to sort of calm down and to get into a relaxed state of how you would expect to start a long race. I just felt.
And I think because you stated that you wanted to win, so you'd put that pressure on yourself as well, didn't you? And that was The
other thing, when people have come out to support you, you almost want to get to the checkpoint and be in the lead, and so it's good for them as well. It's a strange feeling.
Okay, so Sandra can be relieved that
she can be relieved.
She didn't discourage you. Stan Bland says, what part did Steve Clark play in your victory? You need to explain this question.
But Steve Clark's the Kilmarnock manager, so since he's came to Kilmarnock, and I'm a Kilmarnock Harriers runner, so since he's came to Kilmarnock, his form has drastically improved, so I think it's in jest that he didn't give me any team talks or anything before the race. maybe you should give his team some. John Cassidy, was there a low during the race? If yes, how did you deal with it, recover, and when will you run again? Please don't tell me it was Sunday. No, but I'll tell you, the Thomas who finished second at 4 o'clock on Sunday morning went and climbed Ben Nevis, him and his team.
Did he?
And they were up and down before the prize given, which could not believe.
Well done to him. His crew were fun actually, because after you'd gone, I was chatting to them and they were saying, "Oh, don't you worry, our man's going to win." And they were giving me stick about Brexit, and they were saying, "You should never be leaving." You know, they
were very supportive of me as well. So I thanked them a lot at the end, and they were lovely guys. But in going back to the question, I think we touched upon the real low was sort of just after sort of Tyndrum. I think you're so far into the race and you've still got that bit to go as well. Probably doesn't help at that point, but that was how I got myself out of it. I was just basically putting one foot in front of another and slowing down because I didn't have a choice. And being at the front of the race, that's probably enough to keep you going. I think we answered all that.
So when will you run again?
Well, we go on honeymoon on Thursday, so because Francis, a school teacher, we married 6 weeks ago. So this is a chance. It's actually worked out perfect to do the race, and then so I probably in maybe the second week of the honeymoon I'll maybe get the trainers back on, but I made a mistake after the first one 5 years ago to get back to training too quickly, and I think that's really where the problem stemmed from. So I'll be overly cautious because there's no rush. Do you know what I mean? The races aren't going anywhere. So
where are you off to?
We're going to America. We're going to New York and then over to San Francisco. So it'll be lovely. Can't wait.
Have a great time.
Relax.
George Firmage. Did you train much on the West Highland Way? There was his second race, and he said that he only did one recce as opposed to lows in 2016, and that actually helped him. So he's wondering whether was that similar for you? Yeah,
I made sure I didn't have overkill of the route, because part of it you need to enjoy it. You need to enjoy the different sections, and if you're getting fed up with doing them over and over, then you lose that a little bit. So I would say I covered every section at least probably only once, actually. Maybe the first section a couple more times, but up in the top section I only did it once. And the way I would do it is, for example, I'd maybe park at Glencoe, run down to Bridge of Orchy, back to Glencoe, and then up the Devils and back to Glencoe. I just found, because it's quite difficult as well from a sort of logistics point of view to the top section to get out and sort of do it, unless you're doing it with someone else and planning cars. So I didn't do it too much, and it worked out really well because I've done the race before, and I didn't think that I was going to get lost. If you'd said
I was going to say that
I was going to get lost, I would have thought.
It is funny though, David, because there's people who have done the race more times than you and me who still make mistakes, and it just shows you how much you have to concentrate. And I think for most people, it's when they're with somebody and they're chatting away. You know, you've got no excuse; you're on your own. But that I think that tends to happen. You
just miss a sign.
You're chatting away and it's dark, and you just end up. Like race director Ian Beattie, he one time at the beginning, instead of going right up that hill, they carried on straight on.
I think Rob Sinclair did that last year as well.
That's right, he did. Yes, yeah.
But he didn't cross the water. I think that's what Ian Beattie did.
Okay, Clark Hamilton wants to know, when you shot off at the start, did you think Usain Bolt's 100-metre record was a possibility? And then you get to Neil Scott, he was going way too fast to take the turn at the precinct, and David Searle had someone had told him Greg's was open.
It was strange. It was like an out of body experience. Somebody said go, and
you went.
And normally I'm sort of cautious, and and you think everyone's right behind you, and then when you watch the video, it's
it was a good 15
like a false start.
Meters, wasn't it? And they were all sort of jogging along quite nicely, and you were
chatting away.
That's right. Nicola Dunn says, please tell me your legs really hurt now. Lie if you have to. The more racing I do, I start to find that the legs are not anywhere near as sore as they used to get. I mean, the walking down the stairs and stuff, I remember 5 years ago, it was a good few weeks till all the aches and pains went away. But apart from some blisters, I've been pretty fortunate that a wee bit stiff, but nothing too bad. Sorry, Nicola.
Sorry.
And how are the blisters?
They're fine. I said they were quite big, and once I dealt with them, then they were all right.
Okay.
So no issues.
Yeah. Stacey Holloway. Stacey's one of the ones I've been following this year.
I listened to her on the podcast.
So I'm actually meeting her tomorrow to have her race report.
Excellent.
So she wants to know, at checkpoints, how long do you take? Are you having much food there, or just grabbing and going? Your crew must have different goals compared to mine. 33-hour finisher. Do you wish you could have a support runner? As I know, I was getting lonely and needed one.
The plan at the checkpoints was to grab stuff, and even if it meant walking out the checkpoint to eat it then. but then if you need to sort of change tops or change shoes, then you are going to take a little bit longer. And I wish I had taken a wee bit more time in the checkpoints, because you hear people say, if you take 5 minutes in each checkpoint, it adds up, and that can be a difference. And I had that in the back of my mind, whereas I should have. I think going forward I might set like almost a time limit on the checkpoint and say I'm going to have 3 minutes here, and then get someone to time it, and then I'm not worried about how long I'm taking. I think that would work out quite well. In terms of having a support runner, that would be a huge help, I think, especially over the last section, just to take your mind off things and just have a bit of company. That would
it's funny, isn't it? You talking about the Western states earlier. That's quite a big tradition in the States, isn't it, that you're allowed a support runner, and that can make, that's part of the tactics of a race like that, isn't it? Having someone who can really take some of the stress out of it for you, what pace you're running at, encourage you, and they set the pace, don't they, and you hang on to them. That would certainly help. Okay. Well done, Stacey, for achieving our goal. That's right. Mark Dennis says, how has your training changed since your first West Highland Way to lead to such an improvement in your PB? Because you improved it by over 3.5 hours, so that was a cracking improvement. And when training for a race like the West Highland Way, how do you plan out your training cycle to cover everything required? I think the biggest difference from when I did the race the last time is just the mileage. I do a lot more miles, and also consistency, not having any sort of issues injury wise, or I'm fortunate now that a change of job gives me a wee bit more freedom, and I'm able to fit the training in a wee bit easier. Because before, when you were a golf pro and coaching, you were on your feet all day, weren't you? And so if you've been on your feet for 8 hours and then go for a run, it's not going to be as quality, is it? So the recovery now is sitting at the desk all day. That's great. But in terms of, I had said earlier, the sort of 32-week plan, and I broke that down to 8 weeks. 32 weeks is far too many for one race. I wouldn't do that again. But that is a long time. That is a long time. It's long to be mentally focusing on a race for that long, isn't it? It is. So I did basically all the sort of efforts. Started in the first block of training would be faster, and then coming up to the race it would be more a bit slower and longer, and that worked quite well. I did a lot more hill work in the sort of couple of months before the race, and I think that's one of the things that really helped my quads. And although I said that I was sort of walking all the hills in the second half of the race, I was probably walking up them pretty quickly because I had done quite a bit of hills in my training. I think that helped. And as I said, I normally have a bad cramp in my quads, and I didn't have any of that at all. If your quads sort of blow up, the running downhill was then affected, so it was great to not have any sort of issues with that. Well done. Neil Scott, I think we covered most of this, but it says, what was your race plan? Did your race follow the plan? Best bit and worst bit? I think we've probably covered most of that. But what would your best bit, you think? What's the bit you'd look back and say that was the best bit? Besides the finish. Strange one. I really look forward to just seeing people at the checkpoints, and I always find it's quite a low when you leave a checkpoint, because you've focused on that checkpoint for so long, and then I always felt you get quite a sort of a bit of encouragement when you're coming into a checkpoint, and you feel like if you see a checkpoint, if you're walking, you feel like I need to start running because I don't want anybody to see me walking into the checkpoint. So but I didn't have, you normally have one moment during the race that you really think it was probably just the end, and sort of knowing, if I was to pick when Sandra told me at Lindavra that the lead was what it was, and thinking it looks like I'm actually going to be able to win, that would probably be the best sort of moment of the race for me. Right, excellent. And then Anne-Marie Lord says she's looking forward to the interview, and says it was great to meet you in Morrison's after the race with my tales of woe and backwards running. So did you meet her in the
We did. At that point, though, I was a walking zombie, so I was doing well to stay away.
And then Derek Fish says, how many times did James Stewart swear when you ran along the lock side? And James Stewart says he won't know how many I uttered under my breath. Does he not like that section?
No, we went a training run from Drimmen up to Benglass, and I can remember we came to the point where you either go the low route or you don't.
Yeah.
I could just see him sort of, does the race not go this way? Aye. And I was like, well, let's go this way. Alright then. But no, he's not a big fan.
Isn't he?
No,
okay.
no, he prefers the more runnable stuff, I think.
Yeah. And then the final question that I'd have for myself is, what are your plans for the rest of the year and going forward? Do you think you'll come back and look to retain your title?
Yeah, I would certainly look to come back, whether it'll be next year or the one after. I'd certainly like a good few cracks at it, because it's my favourite race, and I think I'll always be. One of the questions earlier was, what's your sort of the kind of biggest race or your sort of dream race? Well, it was the West Highland Way race, and it probably still is, even though I've done it a couple of times. I just think everything about the race, living in Newton Mearns now, it's virtually on my doorstep, but just, you know yourself, John, the sort of the race family, and I just love the route as well. I love everything about it, and I'd like to just chip away at my time, and but again, we might turn up next year and the weather's really poor, and it's not as runnable as it was this year, so you never know. But yeah, I would certainly like to come back, and if I don't run it next year, I would certainly be back in some sort of capacity. I'd love to sort of volunteer at one of the checkpoints, because I think that'd be quite good fun as well, to see everybody. And the more you keep coming back, you see the same faces, and you get to know people and sort of build good relationships with, and I like all that side of it as well. So it's nice.
I think one of the things I found with James Stewart, he very much felt he was an ambassador for the race, having won it, and he felt a responsibility to, he's helped me this year. He's done some great training tips on the podcast, so I might get you involved next year if you want.
He's been really helpful to me. I listen to all his sort of podcasts and training runs. He's given me a lot of great advice. So if I can help anybody, then I'm.
And I think that's one of the great things, isn't it, about this race, that I think people like yourself who win have got admiration for the Nicoles who finished last, and Anne-Marie who you saw, and we're all in admiration of the speed that you can go, and you recognise the effort that people like Stacey's put in to finish in 33 hours, and it's not just that you've won the race and you just wander away. It's a real sense of we're all in this together, aren't we?
No, it's a special moment watching everybody get their goggles.
I know.
It's nice.
Yeah, I have the privilege, obviously, to be at the front and see people coming forward, and you can just see the emotion in people's faces and how much it means to them. And some of them are hobbling to get there, aren't they? But it's a very special race.
In terms of plans for the rest of the year, I hadn't really booked anything. The plan was do the West Highland Way, go the honeymoon, and when I was away to start to think about it. Having said that, I decided to enter the Frankfurt Marathon on a whim today, because one in the sport team, he obviously has got the sort of notion to get back running again after helping out, so we're going to go over and do the Frankfurt Marathon, and
that one's in October, you said?
That's in October, and I'll do the River Air race, is sort of my local race, so I grew up in Mauchline where the race goes through, so I feel like I'd like to go back and do that again. And then in terms of next year, I quite fancy doing a race abroad. That's one thing that I would like to do, so I'll try and fit that in at some point going forward. But
great. Well, we look forward to following how this year goes in the future, and once again, congratulations.
Thanks, Ron.
And thank you so much for sharing with us your thoughts.
All right,
thank you.
No problem at all.